Hi friends, we will study on Protista, reproduction in Protista. Protista includes various types of unicellular organisms, some plant-like, some animal-like protists. We will study reproduction on Chlamydomonas, Euglena, and Paramecium as example. Reproduction in Chlamydomonas is a unicellular organism from green algae, that we can say it's in green color because have chloroplast. It lives in lakes and reservoirs, like water wait in a place for a time, but smaller than lakes. The special property of the green algae for the organism contain two flagella, which are extension used in movement of organism. It is surrounded by a thick cellulose wall and contains green colored plastids which has a cup shape. This chloroplast look like a cup shape in cross section. Chlamydomonas reproduce sexually and asexually. Asexual reproduction in Chlamydomonas, as we said, it look like this. Has what? Two flagella and one what? Cup shaped chloroplast with nucleus and eye spot which sensitive to the light, and also it covered by what? By a thick cellulose wall. So simple drawing of Chlamydomonas. Asexual reproduction begins by the formation 2 to 8 or 16 zoospores. Zoo because it moves like animal in water. Zoo spore, we know it is asexually reproductive cell. So in asexual reproduction, what formed? Spores formed. But this spores organism with two flagella covered by thick cellulose wall. Cellulose wall, not divide, but first cytoplasmic divisions happen if one time two organisms, two divisions, 4 organisms, 3 divisions, 8 organisms, 4 divisions, 16 organisms can be formed, which are smaller in size but look like their mother cell. So after division complete, but they are able to swim in water, division takes place within the cellulose wall of original cell. The spores, asexually reproductive cell, release after breaking of cellulose wall and original cell wall, mother cell. They grow into cell organism, cell wall. Broke, they release out, then they grow into new complete organism, which is Chlamydomonas. Asexual reproduction, as we can see, there is no male or female reproductive cell formation, there is no fertilization, but number of organisms increased. So new organisms similar to mother produce it by what? Breaking mother cell. Sexual reproduction in Chlamydomonas usually happens when the living conditions are poor, as follows. Chlamydomonas, which has haploid number of chromosomes, undergo series of normal divisions. Like there are 2 Chlamydomonas on this side, another Chlamydomonas. What we need to know, the chromosome number in Chlamydomonas, original number is haploid. This individual similar to the mother Chlamydomonas, but they are much smaller than it, and these are called isogametes. So produce what? Produce organism. How many? 2 meiotic division. Produce 4 or 8 or 16. And on the side, this another Chlamydomonas belong to same species, but with different strains with some different genetic materials. But that time we call them what? Isogametes. Not zoospores, but we call them isogametes. Iso because they are similar. When cell wall broke and they release out on that side or on that side, they look like one another. They are not male nor two female. Only to show they are genetically different, we can say the plus or minus. Gamete, why? Because they fertilize one another, but they are similar, isogametes. The cell wall of the mother will be shattered, isogamete release into the water, then they unite with each other, isogametes from another strain, which are formed in the same way. So two Chlamydomonas, like asexual reproduction, they undergo mitotic divisions, they produce number of organisms. When conditions are poor, these two organisms, they come closer, fertilize one another, unite one another to form what? To form zygote. So that time we call it sexually reproduction. And these individuals, we not call them zoospores, but we call them isogametes. Gametes about what? About the sexually reproduction. Zygote will be formed as a result of union of isogametes. The zygote has pair of chromosomes because each of them haploid. The structure swim in water for a while, then loses its flagella. Once loses its flagella, 2N, surrounded by a thick cellulose wall. Why? Because we said it reproduces sexually when conditions are pure. Temperature less, food less, oxygen less. To protect itself in order to resist against unsuitable environmental conditions, cover it then by a what? A hard protective coat. Then we call it what? Zygospore. It is zygote. Why? Because formed by union of two isogametes. But because surrounded by a thick cellulose wall to resist unsuitable environmental conditions and will grow in a new organisms, then without no more chance or fertilization, we call it zygospore. The zygospore reactivated in suitable conditions. So if we say in winter, it is zygospore, but in spring, when environment or the conditions are good, temperature increase, food increase, oxygen increase, light increase. It divides by what? Meiosis. Why meiosis? Because the original Chlamydomonas has half number of chromosomes. The zygospore has diploid number of chromosomes, so pass through meiosis to produce 4 organisms. Then each of this organism, because grow directly into a new organism without fertilization, that time also we call them what? Zoospores, which are similar to mother cell in a way, behave like grown independent organisms. So if these new formed individuals fertilize one another, we call them isogametes, but directly grow into new mature Chlamydomonas, they are zoospores. Zoospores for asexually, isogametes for sexually reproduction. We can see in the picture too, we start from what? Mother Chlamydomonas in asexually reproduction, undergo mitosis when conditions are good, pass through mitotic divisions 2, 3, or 4 times, produce number of individuals. Each of these individuals that grow into new complete mature Chlamydomonas without fertilization, which we call them zoospores, so it is asexually reproduction. But in the same way, if also produced by mitotic division, produce number of organisms and release them in water, that time they fertilize with another isogamete from another strain, which produce it in the same way by union with process we call it fertilization to form zygote, And we said sexual reproduction takes place when conditions are pure, mean temperature is less, food is less, light is less. So it covers itself by hard protective coat to resist the unsuitable environmental conditions and form the zygospore. But then when conditions become good, then pass through meiotic divisions. Why meiosis? Because the original organism haploid, zygospore diploid, to reduce number of chromosomes pass through meiosis, form new organisms, which also call it as zoospores, and they grow into new mature Chlamydomonas. Cycle turn. Reproduction in Paramecium from ciliated Protista. How Chlamydomonas flagellated Protista, Paramecium ciliated, spread out in lakes, pond water which contains water plants, because have no chloroplast, cannot produce its own food, need other organisms found in places which contain water plants and dissolved organic substances. Asexual reproduction in Paramecium. Paramecium reproduces asexually by binary fission. We remember binary fission from bacteria, which is explained as follows. Division started by normal division of micronucleus. If we get some information about the Paramecium, we said it's a ciliated protist, has number of cilia on body surface, has two nuclei, one big nuclei, which we call it macronucleus, and a small one, we call it micronucleus, with cilia and a mouth, which is known as cytosome, to capture the food. So division start by normal division, means mitosis of what? Micronucleus. How mitosis? Like prophase, metaphase, anaphase, and telophase. After division of micronucleus, each nuclei moves to the opposite side of the Paramecium. At the same time, macronucleus extends and cytosome appears. So macronucleus divide by amitosis. Why? Because not so many changes happen during division of macronucleus. So it's amitosis into and move to the two sides of Paramecium. New mouth and two new contractile vacuole. Contractile vacuole, again, we remember from the chapter 1, kind of vacuoles which found in freshwater organisms like Paramecium and amoeba. It uses it to balance the water in cytoplasm of organism, or it's to discharge excess amount of water. And also body of Paramecium stretches, and this results the division. Paramecium divides into two new paramecia like ordinary mitotic divisions, but what different? There's also one big nucleus in cytoplasm, which is macronucleus divided by amitosis. Sexual reproduction in Paramecium. Paramecium reproduce sexually into two ways, by conjugation and autogamy. Conjugation in Paramecium, two individuals from the same type but from the different strains meet and touch each other from the side which mouth located. 1 and 2. Side of what? Side of mouth. Because it is the unique way to get something into the cytoplasm or discharge it. Macronucleus, macronucleus, and micronucleus. Another thing I can tell you, the small nuclei, which is micronucleus, have relation to reproduction, but the macronucleus more is about the controlling activities in cell. Side of located, and they remain stuck to each other for a short time. A cytoplasmic bridge formed between them, which is temporary, Temporary, why? Because until passage or exchange of chromosomal substance, then they separate one from another. The micronucleus in both organisms undergo meiosis. So we said there are two nuclei, one big macro and one small micronucleus. In both organisms, micronucleus, this one, macro, undergo meiosis. Form how many cells? 3. 1, 2, 3, and 4 cells, which contain half of the complete number of chromosomes. So if it is diploid, now each of them has haploid chromosome. 3 of these nuclei dissolve and disappear, dissolve and disappear. The fourth nucleus divide unequally by normal division into 2 nuclei, divide into 2, one big and one small. Each of these nuclei contains half of the complete number of chromosomes. Also they are haploid. Why? Because this division is mitosis. They represent the primary male and female nucleus. Which one male, which one female? The small one male, the big one female. So in these 2 paramecia, which stuck one another from side of mouth and make what? A temporary conjugation bridge. Now they have what? So forget about that micronucleus, it dissolve and disappear, have no any activity in reproduction. So this, they have one big, one small, one big and one small. Let's show it with a different color. So what happened now? The male nucleus, which is small micronucleus, conjugate or exchange and unites with the female nucleus to form compact nucleus. So they exchange the nuclei. After exchange of nuclei between 2 organisms, they separate one from another. After separation, 1 and 2 paramecia with big and small micronucleus. As we see, now the genetic diversity takes place in these 2 organisms, but at the end they unite with one another to form what? Compact nucleus. To form what? And that organism also to form the compact nucleus, like a kind of fertilization. Each of the Paramecium reproduce asexually by binary fission. Then they can also divide into 2 to form their nuclei, like one big, one small by mitosis, one big, one small by mitosis. But both of them change it at the end of reproduction genetically. But what happened? Number not increase. Then each of the Paramecium reproduce asexually by binary fission to form or to produce new Paramecia. So what happened? All about the micronucleus. Meiosis takes place, 4 nuclei, 3 of them decay, 1 remain. Pass through mitosis, 1 big, 1 small nuclei. The micronuclei exchanged between 2 conjugated organisms. After conjugation, fertilization happened between male and female nuclei, and genetical diversity takes place. After separation, each of them undergo binary fission to produce new organisms. Self-fertilization or autogamy in Paramecium. Autogamy is similar to conjugation as above. How Paramecium has micro and macronucleus. Macronucleus again undergo meiotic division, like small micronucleus, undergo meiosis for how many? 4 cells. 3 of them decay, 1 of them remain, undergo mitosis, unequally division, 1 big, 1 small, 1 big, 1 small nuclei formed. Now it is ready for conjugation or reproduction with another organisms. But except in exchanged nucleus, there is no second organism to exchange its micronucleus with. So these 2 nuclei, they fertilize one another, which contain half and half number of chromosomes. Unit together to form identical nucleus, synkaryon. Synkaryon is fertilization when happens between 2 karyo about nucleus syn, similar. It contains identical genetical factors, homozygous. Why? Because these 2 nuclei, they formed by mitosis and they are identical. Not contain different genetic factors, which is heterozygous. Means what? The homologous chromosomes are same in this case. But what changes happen like from the original Paramecium? Maybe what happened during this meiosis, crossing over or something happened, caused some changes, genetical changes in organism. And the reproduction in Euglena, which is group from the Protista and have flagella, lives in lakes and current water which contain plants. Euglena exists in free case or encysted case. Free case when it's living, move, eat, and digest, and give out waste is free case, but in unsuitable environmental conditions, cover itself by hard protective layer, wait for conditions to be good, we call it encysted case. Euglena reproduced by transverse binary fission. Binary fission organisms divide into 2 organisms, but not unlike Paramecium, vertically it divides into 2. In free swimming stage or encysted stage, both of them similar, but the sexually reproduction in Euglena is not known yet. Nucleus divide by mitotic division, form addition to flagellated protists. The cytoplasm divide laterally and gradually until 2 parts get separated completely to form 2 new organisms, ordinary mitotic division.